Women over 60 never accept less than these in love after 60. Have you ever looked back at past relationships and wondered why you accepted so little when you had so much to offer? Have you ever felt like you've been settling for scraps of affection when your heart deserved a feast of genuine love? Have you ever realized that somewhere along the way, you convinced yourself to be grateful for the bare minimum when you should have been demanding the extraordinary? Welcome back to 60 Wise Living Advice. If you've ever found yourself making excuses for men who didn't make you a priority, if you've ever wondered whether your standards are too high or if his effort is just too low, then hit that subscribe button right now. We're building a community of women who are done accepting less than they deserve simply because they're over 60. Women who understand that our most beautiful, most fulfilling love story might still be waiting to begin. After 6 decades of living, loving, and learning from our mistakes, we've earned the wisdom to recognize what real love looks like. We've experienced enough disappointing relationships to finally understand the difference between someone who's lucky to have us and someone who actually knows our worth. Today, I'm revealing the absolute non-negotiables that should define any relationship you allow into your life after 60. Not unrealistic fairy tale expectations, but the basic standards of authentic, mature love that honors the incredible woman you've become. Maya Angelou taught us, never make someone a priority when all you are to them is an option. At our age, we don't have time for optional love. We deserve to be someone's absolute, unquestionable choice, and nothing less will do. Standard number 1. Consistent and reliable communication. The first non-negotiable might surprise you. It's not about how often he contacts you, but about something far more revealing about his true intentions. It's communication you can actually count on, not the hot and cold pattern that keeps you constantly wondering where you stand. Here's what separates genuine interest from casual entertainment. Reliable communication that doesn't leave you analyzing response times or decoding mixed signals. When he says he'll call Tuesday, he calls Tuesday. When plans change, you're the first to know, not the last to find out. Most telling of all, he reaches out because he genuinely wants to share his day with you, not because he's responding to your initiative again. At our age, we've wasted enough energy on the exhausting guessing games. We shouldn't have to become detectives, analyzing whether that short text means he's busy or losing interest. Mature love doesn't play games with your peace of mind. Margaret, 68, discovered this difference the hard way. I spent years making excuses for men who treated my calls like interruptions and my texts like obligations. I convinced myself that men just aren't good communicators, until I met David. Suddenly, I understood what I'd been missing. Someone who actually wanted to talk to me, who shared the small moments of his day, who never made me wonder if I mattered. But here's what most women don't realize about reliable communication. It reveals something crucial about how he handles the bigger challenges that come with relationships after 60. And trust me, you'll want to understand this pattern before you get more invested. The men who can't maintain consistent communication about simple daily life, they're showing you exactly how they'll handle the more serious conversations and commitments that mature relationships require. Standard number 2. Emotional availability and vulnerability. Here's something that will save you months of wasted time. If a man over 60 can't have a real conversation about his feelings, he's not emotionally mature enough for the kind of relationship you deserve. But emotional availability goes deeper than most women realize. It's about his willingness to be genuinely vulnerable and create the emotional intimacy that transforms good companionship into extraordinary love. This isn't about finding someone who talks about feelings constantly or creates unnecessary drama. It's about finding someone brave enough to share his inner world, his genuine fears about aging, his hopes for these next chapters of life, his honest thoughts about past relationships and what he's learned. Most importantly, it's someone who makes it safe for you to be equally open with your own heart. At our age, surface-level relationships feel like a waste of precious time. We've learned that emotional connection is what separates meaningful partnership from simply having someone to attend events with. We don't have years to spend with men who keep their hearts locked away while expecting full access to ours. Linda, 64, learned this distinction through painful experience. I spent 2 years with someone who was charming and reliable, but conversations never went deeper than current events or weekend plans. Whenever I tried to share something meaningful about my past or my feelings, he'd get uncomfortable and change the subject. I convinced myself this was just how men are, until I met someone truly emotionally available. The transformation was immediate. Suddenly I understood what I'd been missing. Someone who could talk about his fears, his dreams, the experiences that shaped him. That emotional intimacy didn't just improve our conversations, it made everything else between us deeper and more satisfying. But here's what's fascinating about emotional availability in mature men. It's actually a predictor of something even more important that most women don't think to evaluate early in relationships. This next standard will show you exactly what to watch for. Standard number 3. Respect for your independence and individuality. Watch out for this red flag that disguises itself as devotion, a man who wants to be your everything. It sounds romantic until you realize he's systematically dismantling the independent life you've spent decades building. The third non-negotiable is complete respect for your autonomy. Not just tolerating your independence, but genuinely celebrating it. This means he's proud of your accomplishments, not intimidated by them. He encourages your friendships instead of competing with them for your attention. When you have different opinions, he finds your perspective interesting rather than threatening. Most tellingly, he sees your strength and independence as exactly what makes you attractive, not obstacles to overcome. At our age, we've invested years creating lives worth living, meaningful work, cherished friendships, fulfilling hobbies, routines that bring us peace and joy. The wrong man will slowly convince you to sacrifice these pieces of yourself for the relationship. The right man will want to earn a place in this beautiful life you've already created. Patricia, 66, nearly lost herself before recognizing this pattern. It started subtly. Comments about my book club taking up our time, suggestions that my volunteer work was stressful for me, observations that my girlfriends were too demanding of my attention. Before I knew it, I was apologizing for having a life outside of him and gradually abandoning the activities that made me who I was. The awakening was painful but necessary. I realized I'd been shrinking myself to fit into his vision of what a girlfriend should be. The right man doesn't want you smaller. He wants to discover what makes your world so rich and vibrant that you don't need him to complete it. But here's what's really telling about how a man handles your independence. It reveals exactly how he'll approach the bigger life decisions you'll need to make together as you age. And this next standard shows you what those decisions will reveal about his true character.
Standard number 4. Genuine interest in building a future together. If this resonates with you, so far make sure you're subscribed, because what I'm about to share about future planning will completely change how you evaluate whether someone is serious about you. Hit that notification bell. You don't want to miss the warning signs I'll reveal in our next video about men who waste years of your time. Here's the brutal truth about men who keep you in relationship limbo. They're not taking things slow or being careful. They're keeping their options open while enjoying all the benefits of your companionship. The fourth non-negotiable is his genuine, active interest in building a shared future with concrete actions, not just beautiful words about seeing where things go. This goes far beyond casual dating conversations. We're talking about someone who naturally includes you in future planning, not because you've pressured him, but because excluding you from his tomorrow would feel impossible. He discusses holiday plans that assume your presence. He talks about weekend trips months in advance. He introduces you to his family not as someone I'm seeing, but as someone important enough to integrate into his real life. Most importantly, he considers your needs and preferences when making decisions that affect you both. When he's thinking about downsizing his house, your comfort matters. When he's planning retirement activities, your interests are part of the equation. When family gatherings are being organized, you're automatically included in his mental planning. At our age, we've learned something crucial. Time is our most valuable asset, and men who won't invest in planning a future with you are telling you exactly how temporary they consider your presence in their lives. We don't have years to waste hoping someone will eventually decide we're worth committing to. Helen, 67, lived this frustrating reality for 18 months. She said, quote, "Richard would tell me how much he cared about me, how happy he was with our relationship, how grateful he was to have me in his life. But whenever conversations turned to future plans, even simple things like Christmas celebrations or summer vacation ideas, he'd get vague and uncomfortable. 'Let's not plan too far ahead,' he'd say, or 'we'll see how things develop.' I was living in constant uncertainty about whether I actually mattered to his future or if I was just pleasant company for his present." The contrast became heartbreakingly clear when she met James. She said, quote, "Within our first few months together, the difference was unmistakable. James would naturally say things like, 'When we go to visit my daughter next spring,' or 'I'm thinking we should plan a trip to that place you mentioned.' He wasn't making grand declarations about forever. He was simply including me in his natural planning process because a future without him had become impossible to him." Helen's voice grows stronger as she continues, quote, "He asked about my family traditions before our first holiday season together because he wanted to understand how to blend our celebrations. He inquired about my preferences for travel because he was already mentally planning adventures for us. He introduced me to his closest friends not as someone I'm dating, but as Helen, who you're going to love. Every action showed me that he saw me as a permanent part of his life story, not a temporary chapter." What makes this standard so crucial is understanding the difference between someone who's building towards something with you and someone who's content to maintain the status quo indefinitely. Building a future together doesn't mean rushing into marriage or making impulsive life changes. It means both people are actively working towards shared goals, making plans that honor the relationship's growing importance and demonstrating through daily choices that this connection is worth protecting and nurturing. When someone genuinely wants to build a life with you, future planning happens naturally. They don't need to be convinced to include you. Excluding you would feel wrong. They don't avoid conversations about tomorrow because they're excited about the tomorrows you'll share. But here's what's fascinating about men who avoid future planning. It reveals something deeper about their capacity for the kind of commitment that matters most as we age. And this next standard will show you exactly what that commitment looks like when it's real.
Standard number 5, consistent actions that match his words. The fifth and perhaps most crucial standard is complete alignment between what he says and what he does. No more accepting beautiful words that aren't backed up by consistent, reliable actions that demonstrate his genuine care and commitment. This isn't about perfection or never making mistakes. This is about fundamental integrity. When he says you're important to him, you can see that importance reflected in how he treats your time, your feelings, your place in his life. When he promises something, following through isn't a struggle or an afterthought. It's automatic because his word actually means something to him. The gap between words and actions always reveals itself in small things first. The man who says, "You matter," but consistently runs late to your dates?
He's showing you exactly how much you matter. The one who declares his feelings but forgets things that are important to you, his actions are telling you the truth his words are trying to hide. At our age, we've been disappointed by enough empty promises and romantic declarations that meant nothing when tested by real life. We've learned that character isn't revealed in grand gestures or passionate speeches. It's shown in the quiet moments when no one's watching, in the inconvenient times when following through requires effort, in the daily choices that either honor what someone claims to feel or expose it as mere words. Dorothy, 69, spent years accepting this painful disconnect. I was addicted to men who could tell me exactly what I wanted to hear. They'd say I was the most amazing woman they'd ever met, that they'd never felt this way about anyone, that I was their priority. Meanwhile, they'd cancel plans last minute, forget conversations we'd had about things that mattered to me, or disappear for days without explanation. I kept believing their words and making excuses for their actions. The pattern became exhaustingly familiar. They'd smooth over every disappointment with more beautiful words. When they'd forget my birthday, they'd give a speech about how overwhelmed they'd been. When they'd cancel our anniversary dinner, they'd promise to make it up to me with something even more special. I was living on a diet of promises while starving for actual follow-through. Everything changed when Dorothy met Robert. The difference was immediate, but it took me time to trust it because I'd become so accustomed to disappointment. Robert might not be the most eloquent man. He doesn't give flowery speeches about his feelings, but every single thing he says, he backs up with action. Her voice grows warm as she continues. When he says he'll call at a specific time, he calls. When he says I matter to him, I can see it in how he remembers details about my day, how he prioritizes our time together even when other things come up, how he includes me in decisions that affect our relationship. When he tells me he loves me, I don't just hear it, I feel it in how he treats me every single day. Dorothy discovered something profound. His love isn't just something he talks about during romantic moments. It's something I can count on when I'm sick, when I'm stressed, when life gets complicated. He shows up not just when it's convenient or when he's feeling romantic, but consistently, reliably, because that's what love actually looks like when it's real. Actions reveal priorities better than any words ever could. A man can claim you're the most important thing in his life, but his calendar, his choices, his effort, these tell you where you actually rank in his world. The beautiful truth about actions matching words is that it creates something precious: security. Not the desperate need to control outcomes, but the peaceful confidence that comes from knowing someone's love shows up in behavior, not just in conversation. When actions consistently match words, you stop wondering if someone really cares. You can see and feel their care in everything they do.
Standard number 6. Complete acceptance and genuine appreciation of exactly who you are now. Not who you were 20 years ago. Not who you might become if you changed certain things about yourself. But the beautiful, complete woman you are today. This means he loves your body as it is now, with all the changes that time and life have brought. He appreciates your personality, your opinions, your way of doing things. He sees your age and life experience as assets that make you more attractive, not obstacles he's overlooking. Most importantly, he makes you feel cherished for being authentically yourself. At our age, we shouldn't have to pretend to be younger, hide our life experiences, or apologize for the natural changes that come with living fully. We deserve partners who see our maturity, our wisdom, our lived-in beauty as the incredible gifts they are. Sarah, 65, found this acceptance transformative. I'd been in relationships where I felt like I had to constantly prove I was still desirable despite my age, where I sensed I was being compared to some idealized version of my younger self or other women. I was exhausted from trying to be someone I wasn't anymore, and honestly didn't want to be. The change was remarkable when she met Michael. From our very first date, he made it clear that he was attracted to exactly who I am now. My silver hair, my laugh lines, my stories about my life experiences, my confidence that comes from having survived and thrived through decades of living. He tells me regularly that he finds mature women far more attractive than younger ones because we know who we are and aren't afraid to be ourselves. I finally understood what it felt like to be loved for who I actually am, not who someone wished I still was. Complete acceptance means never having to hide parts of yourself, apologize for your age, or compete with fantasies about youth. It means being celebrated for the incredible journey that brought you to this moment and the wisdom, strength, and beauty you've gained along the way.
These 6 standards aren't asking too much. They're asking for exactly what mature, authentic love should provide. They're the foundation of relationships that honor who you've become and celebrate what you deserve after 6 decades of learning, growing, and becoming the incredible woman you are today. You don't need to lower these standards because you're over 60. If anything, you should raise them because you now have the wisdom to know what real love looks like and the strength to refuse anything less. The right man won't find these standards demanding. He'll naturally want to meet and exceed them, because that's what people do when they recognize something precious. Don't let anyone convince you that you should be grateful for less than you deserve just because of your age. Don't accept the myth that good men are hard to find, so you should settle for mediocre ones. Don't believe that your best years of being loved, cherished, and prioritized are behind you. If this video gave you permission to raise your standards and expect the love you truly deserve, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more content about recognizing your worth and refusing to accept less. Share this with other women who need to understand that love after 60 should be better, not lesser, than anything they've experienced before. Remember, you're not asking for too much when you demand to be loved completely, consistently, and authentically. You're simply asking for what every human heart deserves, and what your beautiful, wise, experienced heart deserves most of all. The right love for you exists, and it will meet every single one of these standards naturally, joyfully, and without you having to ask for it. Never settle for anything less. I'll see you in our next video, where we'll continue celebrating the love you deserve and helping you recognize it when it arrives.